Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into the bizarre, totally hidden reproductive secrets of plants. And even cooler, we'll see exactly how humans figured out how to hijack these wild biological processes to build the modern agricultural world that feeds us today.
Take a look at that potted plant sitting on your desk, or maybe the tree outside your window. Looks like a single, pretty straightforward organism, right? Well, it's actually hiding a reproductive double life that honestly sounds a lot more like alien sci-fi than basic biology. It's a completely foreign concept compared to how we animals reproduce.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the plant's double life, look at the double fertilization miracle, touch on apomixes, which is basically seed cloning, cover the history of plant propagation, and finally, look at the modern nursery industry. Okay, Section 1, the plant's double life. Let's look at this hidden biological reality, which scientists call the alternation of generations.
To put this in human terms, imagine if a human didn't give birth to a baby, but instead gave birth to a totally different, free-living, multicellular organism. And then, eventually, that secondary organism goes on to produce the actual human baby. Wild, right? But that is essentially what's happening with plants and algae. Unlike us animals, where we just directly make single-celled eggs and sperm, plants actually alternate between two completely distinct body forms.
So how does this cycle actually work? Well, plants just constantly bounce back and forth between a diploid phase and a haploid phase. The diploid phase, meaning it has two sets of chromosomes, just like us, is called the sporophyte. Its entire job is to produce single-celled haploid spores through meiosis. But here's the catch. These spores don't fuse with anything. They just grow and divide on their own to become a brand new multicellular haploid organism called the gametophyte. This gametophyte then produces the actual eggs and sperm. When those gametes finally fuse, boom, you get a new diploid sporophyte. And the whole cycle starts over.
Now here's the real kicker. Even seasoned botanists find this whole process to be a bit of a terminological nightmare. Why? Because over millions of years of evolution, modern seed plants have essentially hidden this cycle from the naked eye. In ancient plants like moss, the haploid gametophyte is the main green plant you actually see. But in modern flowering plants, it's been radically shrunk down. The entire female gametophyte is just a few microscopic cells living completely hidden inside the main plant, and the male gametophyte is literally just a tiny grain of pollen. As the researchers Bateman and DiMichele put it, the two generations effectively function as a single organism now.
Moving right along to Section 2, the double fertilization miracle. Now that we know how plants juggle these two lives, let's explore this hyper-efficient evolutionary marvel that you'll only find in flowering plants.
This brilliantly shows how these plants avoid wasting precious energy. When a pollen grain lands on a flower, it grows a tube all the way down to the ovule, guided by chemical signals. But here's the crazy part. It drops off not one, but two sperm cells. The first sperm fertilizes the egg. That's your diploid zygote, the baby plant. The second sperm, it fuses with two other nuclei to create a triploid cell, meaning 3 sets of chromosomes. This rapidly becomes the endosperm, a nutrient-rich tissue that feeds the embryo. By syncing this up, the plant ensures it never wastes energy building a food supply for an egg that didn't even get fertilized. And by the way, that endosperm, that's the exact mechanism providing the vast majority of the nutritional calories you and I eat every day in foods like wheat, corn, and rice. Section 3. Apomixes, or seed cloning. So, what if a plant just wants to skip all the complexities of sexual reproduction entirely, but still wants to make those highly efficient seeds? Enter a phenomenon called apomixis. This is basically natural cloning magic. The plant develops a seed asexually, meaning absolutely no fusion of sperm and egg. The result is a seed that grows into a plant genetically identical to the mother. This is theoretically fascinating because it takes genetic evolution to its absolute extreme. If a plant has developed a killer set of traits for its specific environment, it can just lock those traits in forever, without risking the unpredictable genetic mixing that comes with normal sexual reproduction.
Section 4, history of plant propagation. So, with all this incredible underlying biology, how did humans actually figure out how to exploit it to feed civilization?
Way before we understood things like DNA, meiosis, or haploid cells, our ancestors were basically acting as early biohackers. Around 10,000 BCE, humans started observing these natural systems and manipulating them to solve food scarcity. By 1500 BCE, Egyptian tomb paintings literally show workers hand-pollinating date palms. During the Han Dynasty, Chinese texts were already documenting the sophisticated technique of layering lychee trees, and by the time of the Roman Empire, writers like Cato and Varro were documenting absolute mastery over complex grafting techniques.
These ancient farmers were incredibly sharp. They realized super early on that growing fruit trees from seeds caused completely unpredictable results. You could plant a seed from a massive sweet apple and get a tree that produces tiny bitter apples just because of genetic mixing. So these early biohackers used vegetative propagation, taking cuttings, layering, grafting, to bypass sexual reproduction entirely. They were instantly cloning plants to maintain what we now call clonal fidelity. They wanted those larger fruits, sweeter tastes, and better yields, guaranteed.
And that brings us to Section 5, the modern nursery industry. This ancient biohacking paved the exact path for the massive nursery industries that keep our species alive today.
Today's commercial nurseries are these highly orchestrated operations where that lofty biology we've been talking about actually meets the soil on a massive industrial scale. They are the absolute backbone of commercial agriculture, churning out the millions of uniform plants we need for global food production.
So why does this matter so much to us? Well, when plant breeders spend decades developing an elite genotype, like a super disease-resistant fruit tree, nurseries can rapidly multiply it into millions of exact copies. It's also how we grow crops that are naturally sterile. Commercial bananas and seedless grapes literally produce no viable seeds. They can only survive if we propagate them vegetatively. Nurseries also use rigorous certification to make sure these clones are free of devastating viruses. And, environmentally, propagating native and medicinal plants in nurseries stops us from over-harvesting and destroying wild plant populations.
Looking at the sheer scale of human-assisted plant cloning required just to feed the world today, it leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought to ponder. We love to think of ourselves as the masters of agriculture, right? Manipulating biology to serve our needs. But when you think about the fact that we clear forests, build massive climate-controlled greenhouses, and dedicate vast amounts of our own energy just to ensure the successful reproduction of a select few plant species, who is really working for whom? Are we controlling the plants, or did they just brilliantly evolve to use us as the ultimate vehicle for their own global propagation? Definitely something to chew on the next time you look at that potted plant on your desk. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.